You could be doing a lot of things right financially and still feel like something isn't fully aligned. That's the part people do not always talk about. And most people are not necessarily dealing with a money problem. They may be dealing with a structure issue. And that can be hard to see until you step back. You may be making good money. You may be saving consistently as well. You may even be investing. You may have accounts set up. Maybe you have a 401k. Maybe you have a brokerage account of some sort that you're putting money into, and maybe you have cash in a few different places as well. And maybe you have made financial decisions over several years that made sense at that time and on paper. And it may look solid, but when you step back and you look at it all, it may not fully click. Have you ever looked at everything and think, I should probably feel more confident about this than I do right now? And that feeling shows up more often than people expect or will admit. And it does not necessarily mean that something is wrong. Sometimes it simply means you have never seen everything in one clear view, because it is not always about effort. It is not always about income. In many cases, it comes down to structure and how everything connects. It is not that things are necessarily wrong. It is that different pieces may not have been built to work cohesively and intentionally. And that happens all the time because most people do not build their financial life all at once. They build it in different pieces. A job change here, a new account there, a new investment idea, or maybe even a home purchase, a savings goal, a tax decision, or just a conversation with one friend at a coffee shop, then another, and over time, and you may end up with a collection of decisions instead of a clearly coordinated system. And over time, this can show up in subtle ways. Money spread across different accounts, decisions made at different times in your life, and strategies layered without a clear framework. And individually, those certain pieces may have made sense at the time, and collectively, they may not fully align. You may have multiple professionals, friends, family involved. Could be a CPA, an attorney, an advisor, maybe even different platforms or apps. And each person may be doing their job well, but there still may not be one clear view tying everything together. So you may become the one trying to connect it all. And most people do not always have the time or the context to coordinate every single moving piece that's out there with your financial life. And in many cases, people do not really see this. They just keep adding more on top. Maybe it's adding another account, adding to decisions, adding to complexity, more passwords to remember, logins. And at the same point, it can start to feel a little bit fuzzy. And that's not because anything is necessarily broken, but because the structure was never fully visible. And this is just a general observation that I see, not a conclusion, but about anyone's specific situation. It simply reflects the patterns that can show up over time. And everyone's financial situation is different. And this video is not about making recommendations. It is about helping you think about the financial structure from a different perspective. So I will show you a simple way to think about this, because once you can see the structure, you can start asking better questions. And this is why I built 369 Financial and the Financial X-Ray. It is designed to help you step back and look at one account at a time, not to tell you what to do, not to replace any sort of advice that you may be given, and definitely not to provide a complete financial plan. It was designed to help you see how a specific account may be structured and what patterns may be worth thinking about. When you go through the X-ray, you look at one account at a time. Could be, for example, let's just say you want to look at your taxable brokerage account first, or maybe it's a tax-deferred account like a 401k, or a tax-free account like a Roth IRA. The goal is not to overwhelm you with every possible detail. The goal of this tool is to create a clear, high-level view. Where is the money positioned? How is my money structured? Is there any cash sitting there? Or the funds, positions, or other holdings that you have deserve a closer look? And again, it's really not about saying something is good or bad. It is really all about creating perspective, because sometimes the issue is not one specific investment. Sometimes the bigger question is, how does this account fit into the broader picture of what I'm looking to accomplish? And what often happens is pretty simple. It is not that anything is necessarily wrong. It is that things may not fully be coordinated with what you're looking to accomplish. And there may not be a clear structure connecting everything that may not be fully defined in what your investment goals are. And that is usually when things can start to make a little bit more sense, because when you see it laid out, you can really start to separate the noise from what may actually matter to you. And if you are curious to see what that looks like for you, I included a link in the description, and you can run through the financial x-ray yourself. And I designed it to give you a general educational view and may highlight a few patterns to think about. But before you do, I want to walk you through exactly what tends to show up in the x-ray. The first pattern is scattered decision making. And in many cases, people build their financial life in different phases. You have different jobs, different income levels, different advice, different decisions over the course of time. So what you may end up with is a collection of decisions, not necessarily a coordinated system. And those decisions may have worked in the past based off where you were, but they were not necessarily designed to work together. And that is really where quiet friction can sometimes come from. The second pattern is tax location. Confusion, different accounts are taxed differently, taxable accounts, tax deferred accounts, and also tax-free accounts. So you have to look at each one and how it plays a different role. But many people do not always think about the role of each account. They just know they have it. And it may not be the best account based off what you're looking to do and your money is invested. But the big question becomes, is each account being used intentionally, not perfectly, not according to some universal rule out there, but intentionally? And that question can change the way you look at your overall setup. And the third pattern is the cash positioning. Cash is a position, and cash is not bad. Cash can create that flexibility, and cash can create optionality. Cash can help with short-term needs that you may have within your portfolios, but cash can also become unclear when it's sitting in different places for different reasons. Emergency cash, opportunity cash, future purchase cash, tax reserve cash, cash that is simply there because no decision has been made yet. And when all of that is mixed together, it can be hard to know what is actually available to you and what already has a job. And the fourth pattern is a lack of coordination. You may have a CPA, an advisor, an attorney, maybe insurance, maybe workplace benefits, maybe real estate, and each area may be handled separately. But complexity does not always coordinate itself, and that is the important part. Just because each piece exists does not mean the pieces are necessarily working together. And just because something looks fine on its own does not mean the full picture is clear to you. And then there's the part you do not see on a statement, the uncertainty, that feeling of, I think I'm doing okay, but I'm not fully sure how all of this fits together. And that feeling matters, not because it means something is wrong with what you're doing, but because it may point to an area where more clarity could be useful. And that is why I like the X-ray concept. It slows things down and it creates a simple view, and it helps you look at one account at a time. And it gives you a way to think through structure without just jumping straight into a series of conclusions, because in finance, people often rush to answers. What should I buy? What should I sell? What should I hold? Should I move this over there? Should I do this? Should I do that? Should I change that? But sometimes the better starting point is not an answer. It is a better question. Like, what is the account designed to do for you? What role does it play for yourself? How does it connect to everything else that you're doing? And what stands out when I look at it more clearly? This is an educational framework, and it's not a recommendation to make any change. It's just meant to help you view things from a different perspective. And it does not replace personalized advice. And it does not tell you what decision to make. It's simply just a way to step back and see what may be worth exploring further. And this is not about adding more complexity to your finances. And it's definitely not about changing everything that you're doing. It's not about assuming something is wrong with what you're doing either. It's all about seeing things more clearly. Because once you see how something is structured, it is often less about needing more information and then more about having a better perspective and system. And that system and perspective can make the next conversation more productive. Whether that conversation is with yourself, your spouse, your CPA, your advisor, or someone else helping you make decisions. If you want to run through it yourself, I included the link in the description, and it's designed to provide a general educational view and may highlight a few patterns to think about. Again, this is educational. It's not about personalizing advice or anything like that. I really built the tool to help you open up and think to yourself like, hey, I should probably feel more confident about this than I do right now. And this tool may be a useful place to start.